How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have Brightshine with us. You can say his name and what he does in the band.
Hi, I'm Pete Sawyer. I'm the lead singer, guitarist, and chief songwriter in Brightshine.
There we go. Well, Pete, thanks for coming on. Erica had shout outs to Erica at Muddy Paws. She has been sending me over some of your stuff, so appreciate her as always. But the question I have for you, Pete, to start off with, how did Brightshine come to be? How did you guys form? And just kind of give me the whole anthology story about Brightshine.
Sure, absolutely. I've been playing in a reggae band called Echo Street. It was a reggae and funk band called Echo Street with my friend
Nice.
Jason Bryant.
Okay.
And he had toured with Damian Marley for about 7 or 8 years as his guitarist, and was wanting to kind of do some original stuff. So we wrote some songs together and formed a super fun band. And I had been pretty good friends with a guy named Murph Murphy, who's a bass player around the Bay Area that everybody in our scene pretty much knows and loves. And he was playing, and he was the guy I thought of, playing bass in a reggae band is kind of a whole different thing than playing rock. So he was the guy I thought of who could actually cut the mustard as a reggae bassist, and still be able to cover the funk stuff in that band. So Murph and I worked in that band together, and got to be better. We were kind of acquaintances, and we got to be good friends in that. So when that band ended, Jason had moved away and found a different gig, and so I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do next.
Sure.
I really wanted to kind of focus more in on my rock stuff. My previous projects had all been pretty improvisationally rock based. So, kind of in the Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, Derek and the Dominoes, Allman Brothers kind of area.
Okay.
So I kind of set about forming a band, my dream band of all the people I've kind of knew and loved in the Bay Area. So I started with Murph. I had him over and started working on some songs with him and just kind of like casing it out to see what we felt like.
Sure.
I had also become friends with a guy named Celso Alberti, who is our drummer. Celso is a Brazilian drummer who played with the great Brazilian percussionist Ayrton, and has also played with Steve Winwood. And he's a monstrous drummer and a really great friend of mine too. And I thought he would be a good fit for this band because while I wanted it to be able to rock out, I also wanted to have a jazzier world music feel in there too.
Okay,
So we weren't
yeah.
just a straight rock band. After playing the reggae, I was kind of really into having more of a world feel with things and the stuff that I was writing. So Celso seemed like the perfect guy for that because he can totally rock out. You would think he's just a rock drummer until he starts to swing, and then you're like, oh my God, he's a jazz drummer. That's my perfect thing. I started off as a drummer, so I'm kind of picky about drummers and how
Sure.
and their feel and everything like that. So once I had Celso and Murph, then I was trying to think of keyboard players, and I had never even met Eric Levy before, but I really was a huge admirer of his playing. So I just cold called him and asked him if he'd come to a recording session. I'd already kind of arranged the songs with Murph and Celso, and he was super nice and came in and just crushed it, was amazing, and was just really, it was really serendipitous. He was just a really good fit musically and personally with us. So we had those four people, and then I also play in some other bands like cover bands and stuff like that around town, and
Sure.
had met this vocalist, Maria Quesito, who was actually an opera singer, but she was playing in this cover band
Oh, very
and just
cool.
singing great on pop songs and stuff like that. So I could just tell she had a very versatile voice, and I really liked her a lot personally. So I had her come in and we kind of started it as an album. The album Shadows in the Sky, our first album, I kind of started it. Let's record this and kind of create a sound together, and then we'll go out and play live, was my kind of philosophy. So I had Maria come in, and she just sounded really beautiful and was able to really blend her voice in a lot of different settings, which is not something everybody can do as a singer. Some people
Sure.
have very
Yeah.
distinctive voices, and some people can blend, and she's really good at doing both of those things. So she was a great fit, and so that was pretty much Brightshine for the last 3 or 4 years. Recently, Eric has gotten super busy with his other band, Night Ranger, and so I'm still playing some gigs with him, but I also have brought in my friend Paul Restigian to play keyboards as well. I may even I kind of dream of Paul also plays guitar, so I dream of having maybe some gigs where he does, we have both of them on the gig, but those guys are kind of they make one keyboard player between the two of them in the project. So I love them both, and they're both really good players. So it's fun to have that kind of area of switching off. So that's kind of the personnel. We came together, we recorded Shadows in the Sky. That came out really well. I was super stoked with the sound I got on it. I also am a producer, so I'm also really hands-on the sounds and the recording techniques and everything like that.
Sure. Yeah.
And Selza, the drummer, is also a very accomplished engineer. So he and I get really into, we geek out on all that stuff pretty hard. The sonics of the album were very important to me, as well as just the sound of what we were coming up with in terms of the music we were writing. So that, by the time I got that album released, it was like mid 2019. And then we started playing some live gigs. We were really up and running. We had a bunch of gigs booked in March of 2020. And then we all know what happened then.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
that was kind of mark one of Brightshine, is that boom, the axe came down. And that's kind of when I started working on the stuff for this album.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the backstory on that, Pete. It was really cool to hear that, and I particularly liked just you talking about being a producer and being, very particular about who you have within your group. I'm sure as being a producer for as long as you have been, I feel like you can take those liberties to try to, see who fits well for your band, and I feel like you can be a little bit more meticulous about like who you have in and what's gonna work for what you're going for. And Erica had sent me over one of your music videos for New Days, and I was taking a listen to that just before we hopped on, because I feel like as an interviewer, you got to kind of understand what you're working with here. So
Sure.
I really enjoyed it, and I think it kind of, if anything, makes me more interested in going back and listening to it again, because now that I know that you're a producer and you're like very like trying, like I almost had a feeling like listening to it, I was like, he's got to have some, like, he's got to know some production or something, because it does feel very like thought out. And so I was like, I wonder if he's a producer, I really wonder that.
You have a good ear, Brandon.
Oh, thank you. So it was very cool to hear that. And sometimes I feel like when I have people on that are producers as well as musicians, do you find that you are a little bit harder on yourself in regards to how the songs kind of come together? Because I feel like if I was a producer, and I was writing my own music, I feel like I would be pretty difficult on myself,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I've been doing it for a long time, and in earlier years, I didn't really have a good flow between kind of wearing the different hats. Like I producing it, I also mix the album, and I
cool.
also play guitar on it and sing on it, and
Yeah.
I write all the songs on most of it. So this album had a little more collaboration, which is really fun. But typically, I'm definitely involved in writing everything. So it's taken me many years of kind of being able to move between those. So in other words, if I'm sitting around thinking about the album from a production standpoint, I try to just treat myself as, oh, that's the lead guitar player, that's Pete, and I'll get him to do what I need him to do. But it's helpful for me to kind of draw these lines so I can really, for instance, when we're tracking it, I like to get everything set from an engineering and a production standpoint, and I just play. Because we record everything live. The only thing I usually overdub are the vocals and maybe a few additional guitars. So I really like the feeling of having everyone playing together. I feel it's a lot more organic. A lot of music nowadays, and I've certainly done this for a lot of my earlier albums, is made one track at a time, where they use fake drums, and then they might bring real drums in, or they just leave the fake drums on, which is it's a totally valid sound. But for me, I'm really into like the real sound of the real instruments. So I've evolved to a point where I like to record live. So in order to do that, I have to just be a musician at that point. I can't be thinking about the production stuff.
Yeah, no, and I think that obviously pays you dividends, because it does feel like in some aspect it's like, okay, I see Pete, he's playing the guitar, he's doing the singing in the music video, and then it makes me also kind of like split off and think, well, he also did the engineering for this and the mixing and the mastering of it. So I'm like, okay, so there's just like two like, obviously very much to the point of having a brain, two sides of the brain, where one side's like, I feel like is more of that, I'm an engineer, like I have to kind of figure out how these are going to work together, and then like also playing it live, like in the studio together, and then also does it work like from the perspective of an artist, like is my lyrics like working out well with like how well I'm like either singing it or like the way that I kind of say it in a song. So I feel like there's a lot more depth to it now, knowing that there's you're the dude behind the curtain as well as also in front of the curtain. So
Right, exactly.
so that's really neat. So now I'm gonna have to go into it with a fresh head here, but I appreciate that a lot, Pete. That was really cool.
Oh, thanks.
Speaking on that same sort of terminology, who kind of inspired you to start, obviously getting into the engineering side of things, but also just kind of musically, who inspired you to start picking up instruments, playing, and wanting to get started kind of in that music,
Yeah,
aspect
yeah.
of things.
Yeah, I started off when I was a teenager. I was 12 years old. I started playing the drums, so I was really, really focused on drummers and being and kind of playing drums and bands and stuff like that. All as a teenager, so it was a lot of Rush, Led Zeppelin. I got really into jazz too. I got into
Nice.
Coltrane, Miles Davis, all that kind of stuff. King Crimson, I really liked. I was pretty into prog rock a lot at that
Sure.
point,
Yeah.
as long as as well as just regular classic kind of rock. Van Morrison, Eric Clapton, all that kind of stuff. I also was really started as my teens went on. I started to really get into singer songwriters like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Jackson Brown, all those kind of guys. And I was pretty into a lot of the music that was happening in the '80s, like REM, U2, all those kind of those bands that came with that next wave.
Sure.
And then there
Yeah.
was a cool wave of bands that came after them, like Blues Traveler and Fish. And I really liked a band out of Virginia called Indecision that was kind of up around then. Spin Doctors. There's a big movement kind of that came through in the '90s, and I was really dig Widespread Panic, actually, one of my favorite one of those bands too. So a lot of those bands were kind of motivating me just as a fan of music, in
Sure.
addition to motivate me as a drummer. And then I started in my early 20s. I picked up the guitar and kind of switched instruments, because as soon as I picked up the guitar, songs started coming out of me just everywhere, and especially in my early to mid 20s. So I was like, I guess I better learn how to play this thing if I'm going to be writing all these songs on. I can't really do that on the drums. So I like spent maybe 4 or 5 years. I was still gigging as a drummer, but I was practicing 4 or 5 hours a day on the guitar and kind of getting myself into a place where I could really play that instrument legitimately. I'd already had a lot of experience playing in bands, and I already, was a drummer, which a lot of the rhythm of the drums will take you into any other instrument. So
Sure.
I had that kind of background to work with.
That's awesome. As a guitar player myself, and also kind of starting out at around the same age of like 12, 13, like it's crazy to think that, I've been playing guitar for that long, and I'm sure,
Yeah, exactly.
for you as well, I imagine the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really answer you about guitar players. So I would say my favorite guitar players are like probably Jerry Garcia, Mark
Yeah,
Knopfler of Dire Straits, David Gilmour. I like Hendrix, Bill Frisell a lot, and I also try to play with horn players a lot. So you know, Coltrane,
sure. Yeah.
Miles, Charlie Parker, all those guys. I find that trying to work on your tone or your phrasing using another instrument can kind of bring some stuff in there that's not so guitar centric.
Yeah, no. That's what I kind of noticed about New Days as well. Is just like I like the kind of separation. Like I think there's a portion about I want to say it's like 2 minutes into the song where there's kind of like a nice lead guitar part, and then it just kind of, there's no singing. It's just this real nice like bridge section that I was like, okay, this is very, for me growing up, my parents are, were very much into classic rock. So like it
Yeah,
just felt like, the nostalgia of like growing up as a kid and just like listening to that
sure.
sort of stuff was like really circulating when listening to New Day. So
Oh, thanks, man. I
I
appreciate
was
that.
like, this is great. Like usually I'm like, I always, whenever I see my parents, I'm just like, oh, you should check out this, this person I've interviewed, because they have like some stuff that, obviously, they had listened to and, are
Right,
more
right.
familiar with than I am. But so I always try to like pitch that sort of thing to them. But I also like that you incorporate jazz. That was a genre that I didn't really care for a good bit of time, and then I went to go take guitar lessons. I think I even talked about it in shout outs to Ken Newman. I had him on very recently. We were talking about jazz, and I had told him like I went to go get lessons, and the people that taught me were like really heavily into jazz. And I was just like, I don't like jazz, I want to learn how to play rock and roll, like or whatever,
Right.
And I think over time they kind of beat me down to the point where I was like, listen, I'm gonna listen to some jazz artists, and then it was really something eye opening that I don't feel like I would have fully grasped if I didn't take lessons. Like, I think just, initially having that motivation to take lessons and learn from them, that, jazz is such a unique genre of music that I think, like, there are certainly artists that I listened to that were, that grew up listening to jazz and kind of were inspired by that. So it's cool to hear. It's cool to hear where some of that stuff comes from. So
Yeah, I mean, I've very similar. When I was learning drums, my teacher was like, "All right, we got to learn this jazz stuff," and I was like, "Oh, really? That sounds hard or whatever." But that's what got me into jazz too, is the exact same thing. So then I started going out and listening to people, and of course, every time I read it, I'm a big reader, and I love to learn about stuff.
sure.
So every time I read an interview with one of my drumming heroes, they would always shout out to these jazz guys that they love. So I was like, "All right, I need to figure this out." And then it really got inside of me, and I totally love it. But it's like it's hard to get into jazz if you're a young kid. You just want to rock.
Yeah. That is 100% truth right there. I at first, and now I think back and I'm like, man, that was great fundamental building. And then obviously now I've been playing guitar for 29 now, so I've been playing it for, I'm not even gonna count the years because it just makes me feel.
Don't start counting years; it gets worse.
Yeah, it gets worse. But the next question I have for you, Pete, as you mentioned, you said you were a drummer and then you kind of swapped over from, to guitar and doing vocals and stuff. How does that, as obviously having, doing cover bands, having, different, doing reggae even prior to this, and prior to this newest band you're in, started, how does that, do you feel like there was any kind of differential in changing over from like drumming to, guitar playing? Because I feel like for myself, like, over the pandemic, I was picking up bass, and, I feel like bass and guitar, they're kind of sisterly or brotherly in the same kind of family. But I feel like drumming and guitar, like, there are some rhythmic aspects to guitar, but at the same point, you're like, this uses sticks, and then guitar is like, you have a pick and strings. Like, it's completely different. Did you find that there was kind of roadblocks or like stepping stones to, get more involved in into playing guitar and like singing? Because I feel like those things, are collectively different than playing drums. Drumming.
Oh yeah, I would say that singing is collectively a whole other. Their guitar playing would be one category, and drumming and singing is a total different thing. So yeah, both of those did not come easy to me. I will say drumming was pretty natural for me. The guitar, the songwriting part came very easy. It just was popping out of me as soon as I learned chords. So I was like, I guess I'm a songwriter if that's going to happen. So I might as well figure all this other stuff out. I also was really into, people like Dire Straits, Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, the bands that jammed. So I wanted to learn how to jam, how to play lead guitar on, and not just like blues lead guitar, which is fairly easy to pick up, but all the people I liked played stuff that wasn't really particularly bluesy a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, Gilmour certainly is very bluesy frequently, but even a lot of his stuff, he adds a lot of notes that are not in the blues scale. So it was, for me, it kind of led to me learning about music theory, and that took many, many years. I mean, it's still an ongoing process, but I had to really learn. For me, I wanted to understand why you would play this mode over these chord changes.
Sure. Yeah.
I also got to the point after playing for about it was probably 11 or 12 years. I felt like I'd gotten good enough, and I was really trying to avoid going into the real world and getting an actual job. So I thought I'd try teaching guitar. And that ended up being pretty successful for me. That's the way I've made a lot of my living along the way, in addition with all the music stuff. And that really helped. Having to teach someone else how to do it was really good, because then you really do need to understand it on a much deeper level than just faking it. So for me, it was a lot of learning around that, a lot of practicing, and then just going out and doing it and figuring out, learning from other people too. Really, the Bay Area music scene is amazing. And, I can't even put into words everything I've learned about rhythm just from playing with Selza, the drummer in Brightshine for the last 6 years. I mean, his rhythmic sensibility is incredible. So, having the ability and the fortune to play with these incredible musicians, you just learn so much just
Sure.
by the act of playing. So that's what a lot of people ask me, how can I get better? Find people to play with and play live. Even if you're in somebody's living room playing for 2 people, I mean, that for me can be as knee knocking as 2,000 people.
Oh, certainly.
It just depends. So, it's like, get out there, get yourself in a place where you have to play. You can't just stop and, eat something.
That is true. Like, you don't know, you won't get better at your chops if you aren't trying to, like, play against other people, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
improvise and come up with stuff on the fly. I mean, that it took me a lot of years to answer your question, to really get to the point where I was super comfortable. I got to the point where I was doing really well playing in my own original material in a band. I was able to get that up and running, because I'm not really trying to do anything else except be myself.
sure.
But then as I started to get gigs as in cover bands and doing other things, that required me to really fill out my skills so I could sound, reasonable in those settings. So all of it has kind of gotten me to where I am now, where I feel like I have a nice take on the original stuff, but I can also do, other people's stuff when needed.
Sure, certainly. The next question I have for you, Pete, keeping it, kind of in the same lane for people who aren't familiar with Brightshine, they happen to check this interview out and are interested in checking your band out. What song would you recommend to a new listener to check out that will kind of give them an idea of your sound?
Yeah, I mean, I think New Days is pretty good. For Brightshine, it's a pretty short song. Like, I typically like songs to be a little longer, like a Pink Floyd or a Dire Straits song is usually more 5 or 6 or 7 minutes long. I find that I like to kind of really take a journey in my songs.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
New Days is a little shorter, but in that way, it's also maybe a little more accessible. I think I typically, when people talk to me about that, I try to find out what music they like.
Yeah.
New Days has a little bit more of a kind of an Americana type groove to it almost, whereas we have other stuff that rocks harder. We have stuff that's jazzier. So wherever you're coming from, we're kind of eclectic, and none of our songs really sounds similar to the one after it.
Sure.
And I really like that about this band, is that we're very flexible. So if you come see us, play a 2-set show, you're not going to be like, oh my God, that we've been playing the same tempo for an hour, and it uses the same chords for every song and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of my favorite bands do that. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I really like the eclecticism. So it almost feels like it's a mixtape.
Yeah, certainly. But I'll leave a link to, I imagine by the time this comes out, New Days will be out. So
yeah, that video link you have will be listed at that point. So yeah, it's coming out on Friday. So yeah, by the time you put this up, it should be up and running.
There we go. Well, go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to go give New Days a listen.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem, Pete. The next question I have for you, keeping it more current, what are some bands you're currently listening to right now?
I haven't really had time to listen to almost anybody of late, just because I've been focusing so hard on the album.
Sure.
And all the good, like, as soon as the pandemic ended, all of a sudden I still was finishing the album, but now I've got gigs out the yin yang. So it's like, it's just been nuts. During the pandemic, I was really getting into the Tedeschi Trucks band. Which is, I don't know if you've heard of Derek Trucks, but if you like playing guitar, you should check him out. He's
okay.
Probably the best slide guitarist on the planet right now, or certainly one of them. I also have been listening to a lot of old Van Morrison recently.
Nice.
See, what else have I been checking out? Been getting really into Keith Jarrett. He's a jazz keyboardist who does a lot of improvisational stuff. I'm finding there's a lot for me in there in terms of improvising. Piano players just improvise differently than guitarists.
Sure,
So
yeah.
it's cool to kind of get out of the mindset of playing guitar licks and really think about all the stuff he's doing with chords as he plays licks through the chords, So I've been really digging that a lot. But yeah, I've really been focusing mostly, if I'm not preparing for a gig or, mixing a song or working on a song, I'm usually, trying to write a new one or something like that. So I've been kind of closed down on newer stuff, and I'm ready now that I'm done with the album. I'm definitely going to go and check some stuff out. So anybody who wants to slide into my, comments anywhere and recommend some bands, after hearing Brightshine, hey, check these guys out, I would love to. Billy Strings is a new guy that I've been really enjoying a lot.
Okay.
He's like a bluegrass guy who's kind of really expanding out. He's playing arenas, and bluegrass guys don't usually play arenas.
Yeah.
So he's taking it by storm. He's really great.
Awesome. I have some homework to do, so that's always good. I always love finding a good guitar player is always a gem. So
Oh
I'll
yeah,
have to
he's
go do
amazing. He'll get you back to your acoustic practicing in a hurry.
it. There we go. Next question I have for you, Pete. You had mentioned it closer to the top of the show. You are in a cover band, and usually this is the question I usually ask about. What song you would want to cover, but figure I'd flip the script a little bit. You know, you obviously write your own music within Brightshine, and then you have your cover band. How do you feel those kind of differentiate? Because I feel like having a cover band and doing the cover songs, like I feel like requires a lot of time, and like obviously there's a good, immense amount of talent that goes into doing cover songs and kind of arranging them and just making sense of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's kind of two different schools of thought for you in regards to writing your own music versus like cover band stuff? Or I'm just curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I feel like my songs are just, it's kind of in my own little universe that I and then Brightshine are creating. I try, when we go record these, because we're recording live, I really enjoy the experience of, I'm just going to play it on guitar for you and sing it to you. And you guys tell me what the rest of the song is about. So I try not to control them too much. That's only because I have the right people in there. It's like, everybody's like, how do you get them to play the stuff that just works so well? And I'm like, I just called the right people. It doesn't have anything to do with me telling them what to do, because if you tell people what to do, they always end up playing a little more stilted than that.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the discovery aspect of Brightshine, and being an improvisational musician, I enjoy the discovery every time we play, because once you get to the end of the song may go pretty similarly, but the jam that we have afterwards and some of the songs could go anywhere. So that's one of the most beautiful parts that I think about playing your own music, is there's absolutely no rules. Like, nobody can tell me what I can or can't do with it. Whereas with cover bands, there's always expectations. So I play in a couple different cover bands. I play in like a classic rock band that plays just covers from the 60s up through the 80s. So that's kind of one type of cover band. And then I have a Grateful Dead tribute band called the Left Hand Monkey Wrench Gang. So that is like a specific thing. We're going in and we're playing Grateful Dead songs. We're not really trying to sound exactly like the Grateful Dead. There's a bunch of Grateful Dead tribute bands now. So there's some that try to sound and look exactly like them. There's others like this band called J-Rad that just goes and plays the songs, but they don't try to sound like the Grateful Dead at all. As a Deadhead, there's certain things I like to have there, so I'll kind of try to walk the middle ground there, and I always try to have a couple people playing the gig. The Left Hand Monkey Wrench Gang is a rotating cast too, so it's always different members every time, because everybody knows the song, so you just show up and play. You don't have to arrange it, which is nice. But yeah, so I try to kind of have a couple of guys or gals in there that don't know the songs at all, or just playing off the cuff, and then I have usually me and one or two other people actually know the things that are supposed to be there, so that as a listener, there's kind of certain things that I want there if I hear a certain song. So I'll try to put those in there with the cover band. So it's kind of, the Grateful Dead cover band thing is a little bit, uses some of my original music chops, because in the way we're kind of creating a new version of that song every time. Whereas a lot of the other cover band I play in, we're trying to sound a little bit more like the song, which is cool too, because that's what a lot of people want from a cover band. They just want an exact rendition.
Sure.
With the Grateful Dead stuff, we're fortunate enough, if you're playing a Grateful Dead fans, they actually want you to do something different with it. So that's kind of neat.
That is true. Like, and I do appreciate that answer too, because like, I've seen my fair share of cover bands, and I've seen obviously a lot more original artists and stuff. So I always, when I have people on that are in cover bands, I always find this interesting concept between, obviously writing your own music and having the liberties and kind of going wherever you want to go with the song, as opposed to cover bands where I feel like they are definitely more limited on what they're able to do or how far out they can go, because depending upon whatever band it is, like they got to stay within the confines of the song, otherwise it's just a hodgepodge of like a different couple different bands. So that's really interesting, Pete.
I also find that another interesting thing is doing a cover song in Brightshine. For that, I always kind of I don't want it to sound like I want to bring a new take to it.
Sure.
If it's Brightshine. Whereas with a tribute band, I'm trying to kind of I think it's an important service to have people like the song if it's going to be a tribute band.
Fair
Whereas
enough.
with
Yeah.
Brightshine, I might be like, oh, I've never heard that song like that before. Like, that's kind of, I feel like an original project, you have kind of a little more leeway when you do cover songs, which I enjoy. I definitely throw cover songs in our set all the time, but try to make them kind of a new version of it, basically.
Certainly, certainly. And Pete, kind of on that topic, I figure I close this part out with you did mention you do throw cover songs into the set for Brightshine. Is there any one that you would want to cover down the line?
Yeah, I've been wanting to throw some REM into Brightshine set because a lot of our covers just end up being 60s and 70s rock, and I listen to as much 80s and 90s as I do 60s and 70s. So yeah, I've been wanting to put some REM. I've been thinking about doing Driver 8, which
Oh,
is one of my
okay.
favorite REM tunes. There's also this Temple of the Dog song called Hunger Strike. And we
Hmm.
have one of our, I don't know if you're familiar with Temple of the Dog, but it was like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, kind of those two bands, the members kind of messing around and came up with this great
Oh,
album
very
called
cool.
Temple of the Dog. I definitely check it out. But they have the kind of the one of the biggest songs on there is Hunger Strike, and it has Eddie Vedder, who has kind of a lower voice, and Chris Cornell, who's a Soundgarden vocalist, who has a
Yes.
really high voice. So I've got Maria, who's this opera singer. So I've kind of had this idea, but I haven't really worked it up where she would sing the higher parts and I would sing the kind of Eddie Vedder parts. So that's kind of something that's been rumbling around in my brain too.
That would be very cool. I like I'm you hit my sweet spot of loving harmonies, so I feel like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if I
totally.
have to if I had to put my 2 cents into the pot here, I feel like
All
that
right,
one
you're
would be
voting
my
for that
choice.
one.
Yeah, it would be my vote.
All right, if we do it, I'll send it over to you. Send you a YouTube video of us doing it.
There we go. Awesome, Pete. I appreciate it. And guys, if you have any suggestions for Pete, drop them in the comments. I'm sure he'll check them out. But
Oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
the next question I have for you, Pete, another fun one. What is your favorite food to eat?
Ah man, that's another thing. It's like, what's your favorite song? It's like kind of depends on the day. But I'm a pretty big fan of steak. I like a good steak,
There you go.
and I like salmon too. I like fish. I like to cook, so
Same.
if whatever I'm cooking that night, it could be end up being my favorite thing. And being the pandemic ended up, I was cooking every night, so I kind of had to really get serious because you never, usually I was out doing gigs and teaching. I'd only be home a couple nights of the week, so there's definitely a lot of cooking during the pandemic.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that every night. Yeah, I would say I cook most nights, so
All right.
I get that feeling a lot. So that's cool. I feel like recently I've been getting a lot of steak, and that just makes me think like, man, I need to go out and buy a nice steak soon.
Sounds like a plan.
There we go, Pete. The next question I have for you, another music related question. If there was somebody you would want to collaborate with, whether it be a guest feature on an up and coming Brightshine record or a producer you'd want to collaborate with, do you have any in mind?
Well, as a producer geek, I have a couple of producers that I really love. It would be really cool to collaborate with Daniel Lanois. He's one of my favorite. I don't know if you know his production style very much, but he does a lot of on site recordings. He'll just rent a house, like a vibey house in New Orleans.
Hmm.
The Bob Dylan album "Oh Mercy" and Neville Brothers' "Yellow Moon" were both recorded in this vibey house in New Orleans, and
Oh,
you
wow.
could just feel you can feel how thick the air is with humidity in the track. So I'm really attracted to that sort of thing. And that's actually the way we've been recording this album is we basically have the studio, but we bring in all our studio gear because they have
Sure.
kind of it's older gear that we don't really want to use. We like ours. So, but we're basically move in on site for a couple days and record. And that's been a really, really nice way to record rather than paying for studio time. Because it's just a little more mellow and we get to be in control of everything, which is always
Sure.
nice. Especially during COVID, it was actually the only way we could do it without having to have other people there that were then possibly exposing you, blah blah blah, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard it all at this point now.
Oh yeah,
So,
oh yeah.
but yeah, that sounds really cool. I've always loved kind of the when bands kind of are in a room together, they record it, collectively together, like they kind of rehearse through it. I think that's really neat. The only one that I saw, and I don't know if it's necessarily like a live recording of it. I know that there was obviously like video done of it, but there's this jazz. I want to say it's kind of. I guess they're kind of a jazz group. It's this band called Snarky Puppy,
Oh yeah, I
uh,
love them. They're amazing.
and they did like a recording in like I don't know if it was like in I guess it was in a studio. I'm pretty sure, but they have them like spread out in this room, and obviously people are listening in and stuff, and so I feel like that would be something I'd want to do. So
Yeah, I
hopefully,
think I saw that video recently. They're all wearing headphones, and
yes.
it looks almost like a gymnasium, but I agree that it's probably a recording studio.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really neat. So I feel like if if something were to be done like that, I would certainly love to do that. So if I don't know who I need to ask to do that, but that'd be very cool.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'd
well, I
like to be a
mean,
part of it.
I'll be happy to do that for you if you want to record live. That's what I do.
There we go. Awesome, Pete. The next question I have for you: you play drums, you play guitar, you do vocals. I'm sure there's other instruments that you're very good at, but if there was another one you could master, what would it be?
I would love to be better at keyboards. I just sit there and kind of plunk away. And I actually did play a little bit of, I took piano lessons when I was like 8, but I didn't retain a whole lot. And it would be pretty cool to really be able to play the piano. But as soon as you start hanging out with, Eric and Paul and my band, you just like, it would take a lifetime or at least 10 years to get up to a point where you were able to look at them and be like, oh, I can't play that. So I don't know if I think I may be too far down the road. I like bass a lot too. I, I'm as a guitar player, I'm really sensitive to seeing guitar players playing bass, and I can just tell. I can be like, he's not actually a bass player; he's a guitar player. Because it
Well,
really is a whole art. It's like where you stop the note and where you put the
sure.
space, and
Yeah.
how you mesh with the drums, and create a kind of a bridge between the drums and the harmonic instruments. Bass is really cool thing.
I feel a little bit called out by that, which I respect immensely because I am the type of person that like literally right next to my computer desk I have my bass, like
Oh
so.
no shade to you for playing bass, man. Go for it. But if you're
I
recording
know
and
that
you're
I
listening back and you're like, you know what, we need a bass player.
I just have to. I feel like reality, like the reality of everything setting in. I think I just have to get really good at bass playing, and then no one will
Yeah.
be able to distinguish whether or not I'm like really good bass player or really good guitar
Yeah,
player.
well, I mean, you could be both. Like Murph, who plays in my band, is a phenomenal guitar player, in addition to being a world class bass player. So it can definitely be done. You just got to put in the time. And also, if you get really good, that's a lot better way to get gigs because good bass players are really hard to come by.
Certainly, certainly, much like good drummers are as well. So, um,
Yep.
but the next question I have for you, Pete, if you were to compile a dream tour lineup, including Brightshine, who would you want to be on that tour?
Oh wow. So like any band on the planet, that kind of dream tour.
Yeah, this is no holds bar. This is
Oh, that's
the dream
cool.
tour.
Um, is it like so? It's like a pack. Like how many bands do I get?
I feel like let's think.
I mean, is
Let's
it like a concert? So it's like one or two. It's like three total bands, or is it like a
we'll
festival?
we'll
Or
do we'll do we'll do 3 bands, including yours.
okay. Um, I would say I like your Snarky Puppy idea. So let's go.
Ooh, okay.
Snarky Puppy, Brightshine, and David Gilmour closes.
Ooh, all right. I like that. That'd be very cool. When can I buy tickets? That's the real
Yeah. Oh
real
yeah.
truth.
If you ever get a chance to see David Gilmour, I've seen him a couple times. He only tours like once every 10 years now, but
Yeah.
he does all the Floyd stuff, and he does I like all his solo stuff too.
Oh, that's
He's
so
just a
cool.
master. It's just like you really I love the phrase "we're standing on the shoulders of giants" when we learn our instruments, and he is definitely one of the giants. It's amazing to see him live. So
Certainly,
definitely do that if
certainly.
you can.
I saw shout outs to my mom. She had like a family friend of ours, or hers at least. I got to see the Who in
Oh, I love the Who.
Philadelphia, and that was a little bit ago, but um, it was such a fantastic experience to the point where we got to meet their like the I think it was their tech, if I'm not mistaken, and he like was like, all right, well, do you guys want to see, the Who's bus and all that sort of stuff? And I was
Oh
like,
man,
I was
that's
like,
cool.
I was like, oh, what? Who would say no to that? Like, I don't understand who would say no to that. So then I was like, we were looking around in the bus, and then we were just about to leave, and he said, wait a second, I have something for you. So he said, stick your hand out, and he gave me a bunch of guitar picks, which I have one right here,
Oh, you got Pete
where
Townsend picks,
which I have like
dude.
Pete's Townsend picks, and I have not used them because obvious reasons,
Oh yeah.
but that was very cool, and I'm not even joking, like it was like a bag of like guitar picks, like he must go through an absolute ton of picks, but it was, like I said, having one of those experiences is really cool, and just I think seeing like, I think as being kind of on the younger end of the scale, like, and seeing like artists like that like still around and still doing stuff, I think it's really cool, and I would certainly love to see some more like classic rock bands. I know I just missed, at least in our area here, I think Paul McCartney was doing like
Yeah.
some of his shows, and I was like, damn it, I should have gotten like a Paul McCartney ticket. That would have been great.
Yeah, he's still really. I mean, it's amazing. I didn't see him this time around, but we went 3 or 4 years ago. Or actually, it was a couple years before the pandemic, probably 18 or 19. But just to see him into his 70s playing at that level, and I see the members of the Grateful Dead around here a lot too.
Yeah.
Phil Lesh, Bob Weir, Bill Kreutzmann, Mickey Hart. They're all that age too. And they are playing at a high level in their
Yeah.
70s. So for me, that's super inspiring. It's like you can keep doing it. This is not like you're a football player and you're done when you're 35.
Yeah.
You can really keep making really high quality music for many years to come. So I think we're kind of in the music industry, we're kind of coming to a point where at least certain areas of the music industry are admitting that you don't have to just hang up your cleats when you're in your 30s or early 40s. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, certainly, and I'm obviously glad about that, because I would love to, take my future kids to shows. So,
Right.
don't want that to close out.
Exactly.
But the next question I have for you would be kind of in the same lane as, obviously that Dream Tour lineup, which is great. In terms of the bands you've seen, which band puts on a great live performance?
Well, sorry, I just had a little water mishap there.
It's all good.
Well, I mentioned David Gilmour already. He's phenomenal. I've seen the Grateful Dead with Jerry Garcia many times, and that is something that even if you only see him on video, I would highly recommend checking out some videos of that, because that's one of the greatest live bands ever. Let's see who else. Branford Marsalis, if you get into the jazz area, his band is always just killing, and really on the edge of improvisational, creativity.
Sure.
They're great. Let's see. Ziggy Marley's band is really amazing.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
They do like some old Bob stuff, but they also do a lot of his songs. He's a great songwriter. There's kind of some local bands around here. One band that I think everyone should check out is called Electric Beethoven, and Reed Mathis is the bass player. He plays with Bill Kreutzmann, the Grateful Dead drummer, in his side project. But Reed is a really amazing writer, and he basically takes Beethoven themes and repurposes them as like funky, danceable, jazzy. It has a little.
Huh.
It's not. They would be a good opener for Snarky Puppy or something like that too, because they're not totally. They call themselves electronic or classical dance music. So that's a really cool project. I should have mentioned that when I was talking about people that I've been listening to recently too. I really like them a lot. They just have anybody that has a totally unique approach to something is always more interesting to me than a band like a Greta Von Fleet or something. No shade to them, because they're all great musicians, but they sound a lot like Led Zeppelin to me, right? Or Van Fleet. It's not Von Fleet. Von Fleet would be like a German version. So there's a lot of bands you can tell they're just kind of sound like another band. So for me, I'm more interested in the people that just are unique.
Certainly.
Like
Yeah. That I'll have to check them out, because that sounds something right in my wheelhouse. And
strap on your guitar and play along. It's fun stuff. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try my chops at that. But and then you did make a good point, and this is no shade to throw at my partner, but she loves them, and I'm like, this is just like, Led Zeppelin 2.0 here. Like, no digs against them. I'm sure
No
they're
digs. I mean,
fantastic.
they're great musicians. They're very talented. I could never sing like that in a million years. So
Neither could I.
I'm very respectful of that. But I would hope that they will evolve and start writing some stuff that doesn't sound like Led Zeppelin anymore. And I don't know their whole. Yeah, this is just me of having heard a couple of songs, so I don't want to judge them out of hand. But there is something about like, well, if I could just go back and listen to Led Zeppelin, why would I need, why do I
Yeah.
need to listen to Greta Van Fleet?
I feel that as well. And every time I listen to some of their songs, I mean, again, they're fantastic musicians, but I don't know. There's just something about it that's just like this, the tiniest bit off about what they do. And I'm usually not too much of a stickler for those things, but it just seems a little bit too like uncanny from the ear perspective.
Yeah, well,
So.
it's tough to come up with new stuff that works, and so sometimes it's easier just. I mean, Led Zeppelin stole willy nilly from blues people, just
Sure.
sometimes in kind of a bad way. I mean, judging them from now in the '70s, maybe it wasn't so horrible or it was more accepted, but they were horrible thieves, but they pretty quick. Their first album could be said to be somewhat derivative, but by their second, third albums, they were just off and running. So maybe Greta Van Fleet Van Fleet. I keep doing that. Needs a good producer to be like, all right, guys, let's write some songs. Let's come up with some things that don't sound like Led Zeppelin, because you guys are super talented, right? Somebody just might need to push them a little bit.
Yeah, maybe they needed that extra step. So
Right.
I feel that. I feel that. But the next question I have for you, Pete, what is your favorite movie or favorite TV show you have currently?
I really, really enjoyed The Queen's Gambit.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Okay.
I used to play chess a lot when I was younger, so I like the chess side of it. But I thought the acting and the writing were just amazing. I mean, just really spot on. I just saw a movie. It came out like 10 or 15 years ago. But I just saw recently called Knives Out that I really liked a lot too.
Oh, okay.
Um, that was a really cool movie.
There we go. Did see something about Knives Out, so I'll have to. I know that's like it looked pretty interesting, so I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah, it's by Ryan Johnson, who did like the Star Wars Last Jedi movie.
Oh, okay. Very
Um,
cool. All right. I'll have to go give it a watch then.
yeah.
The next question I have for you, Pete, if you were trapped on a desert island for the next month and there was one album you could bring with you to listen to, what would it be?
Ooh, 1 month. Survive on one album for 1 month. That's a really tough question. I mean, I'm going through. I did this during the pandemic. Somebody was doing their top. They were doing a thing where on Facebook they'd post, their top 20 albums, and so I cheated. I said I was doing it, but I did 35. And even then,
I feel
I
that.
had such a tough time getting it down to that. I basically just like with a band like Pink Floyd, like which album do you pick, right?
Yeah,
So
that's tough. Yeah.
I just said, all right, I'm going to pick one per band. So to pick one album, I guess I'd probably try to pick something that I could get a lot out of upon repeated listening. So maybe I go with Joni Mitchell, Hajira.
Ooh, all right. I like that. That's a great choice. Definitely haven't heard that name in a while, so that one's cool. I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
Pete.
that album is a great songwriting album. In terms of she's just really earlier in her career she was definitely kind of folky. She was always very original from that outset, but by the time she got to Hajira, she was combining a lot of jazzy elements in there and really just creating her own thing, which is pretty amazing.
There we go. Well, guys, go check that one out. I'll
Oh
leave.
yeah,
You got to listen to that one. That's a classic right there.
yeah.
The last thing I have for you, Pete. The most important thing, tell people where they can find your music at. Where they can find you on social media. What you got, what you have coming out, up and coming, and anything else you want to talk about, in relation to your band.
Sure, yeah. Well, we've got our single "New Days" coming out as we discussed. That's coming out this Friday, the 17th. You'll be able to get that on Spotify, iTunes. The video will be on YouTube. Brandon's going to post the link to the YouTube video. That YouTube link will also take you to the Brightshine YouTube channel. You can check out some other live performances and stuff up there. We're currently working on populating that with some more stuff. If you're in the Bay Area, come to our CD release party at the Kumbwa Jazz Center in Santa Cruz. That's July 23rd. there'll be Brightshine, and then closing out the evening will be my Grateful Dead tribute, the Left Hand Monkey Wrench Gang. So that's going to be a fun night where I get to play like 4 sets of music. Just me and a lot of coffee.
And I was gonna say, and then Pete immediately passing out after. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually like longer shows like that are actually really cool because you just get into a space where you're not thinking anymore. You're just really just there. So I really don't like the short shows are hard for me because I feel like you just kind of get in the groove and then you stop. So I'd much rather play 4 hours than 1. That's my approach. So yeah, you can find us we have YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Brightshine Music, Instagram, Brightshine Music. Our website is brightshinemusic.com. We got the full-length album comes out the 23rd. I would encourage anybody to check out that and try to leaf through and give it a good listen. If you have a good pair of headphones or a good pair of speakers, I spent a lot of time on the sonics on this album, as did the other members of the band. So really check out and listen into it pretty deeply, and you'll find some cool stuff.
There we go. Well, heard straight from Pete. Go check out Brightshine. I want to give, again, a massive shout outs to Erica at Muddy Paw. She always does some fantastic
Erica is
work.
Amazing. I'd like to do a shout out on her as well, too. She's awesome.
She's awesome. So big love to Erica. But most importantly, go check out Brightshine. All of the links will be in the description to go check it out. Ironically enough, this will be coming out the day before the album comes out, so perfect timing on that.
Oh, that's great.
So,
man, I wonder if Erica had something to do with
it. No, it just happened to be in the cards, so there we go. So,
well, when you get a chance, did she send you the rest of the album? Do you have the tracks?
Not yet, but I'll have to.
All right, I'll send it over to you so you can check it out and let me know what you think.
There we go. Well, guys, go check out Brightshine on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I've already subscribed on YouTube, so go do your part and go subscribe as well. And if you enjoyed this interview, share, like, and subscribe. It goes a long way. And huge thanks to Pete for coming on tonight to chat.
Thanks so much for having me, Brandon. It was a great pleasure.